We're beginning tonight's program with Brina Clark's reading of a beautiful poem by Ellen Bass.
Good evening. The World Has Need of You by Ellen Bass. Everything here seems to need us. Rainer Maria Rilke. I can hardly imagine it as I walk to the lighthouse, feeling the ancient prayer of my arms, swinging in counterpoint to my feet. Here I am, suspended between the sidewalk and twilight, the sky dimming so fast it seems alive. What if you felt the invisible tug between you and everything? A boy on a bicycle rides by, his white shirt open, flaring behind him like wings. It's a hard time to be human. We know too much and too little. Does the breeze need us? The cliffs? The gulls? If you've managed to do one good thing, the ocean doesn't care. But when Newton's apple fell toward the earth, ever so slightly, fell toward the apple. Thank you.
Thank you, Brina. That was beautiful. So, labor arts is about using art to remember where we came from. And if we can remember where we came from, we can make the future a better place. We were founded in the year 2000 with Esther, with Evie Rich, who I think is not here yet, with Donald Rubin, and with Henry Foner. And in 2000, he was 80, and he jumped on the opportunity to make a web museum. Who ever heard of that? He worked with us until he was 97. He died in January. And so one of the things we most want to do is pass on to future generations these labor arts. Annie Russo is a 17-year-old singer-songwriter, and she has a spirit of Henry and of labor arts, and she's going to sing a song he wrote in the 1940s, which I think will resonate today. Annie.
The pennies of the nation spoke one day in words a-glistening. The pennies are the working folk, their words make powerful listening. They don't get much time for talking while they do the country's chores, but whenever they start speaking up, the greenbacks better pause. So sang the pennies, so sang the pennies. We're a heads-up bunch of fellers, and we won't be turning till we don't get much on the market, but our souls are not for sale, and we won't be going to jingling down a crooked two-bit trail. We pennies aren't all the same. There's fat ones and there's lean ones. Some are black and some are white and some are in between ones. But whatever our denomination, you can rest content. When it comes to smelling greenbacks, we've a universal scent. So sang the pennies, so sang the pennies. We're a heads-up bunch of fellers, and we won't be turning till we don't get much on the market, but our souls are not for sale, and we won't be going to jingling down a crooked two-bit trail. better drop their ill intent. 'Cause for every single greenback, there's 100 fighting cents. So sang the pennies, so sang the pennies. We're a heads up bunch of fellers, and we won't be turning tail. We don't get much on the market, but our souls are not for sale. And we won't be going to jingling down a crooked two-bit trail. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Annie has written some remarkable songs, so when you go home, you can check out her website. I now want to introduce Sarah Saeed, who's the Community Affairs Senior Advisor to Mayor de Blasio, working with the Muslim community in New York. Sarah.
Good evening, everyone. It's delightful to be here to recognize 6 very special women. And I have a certificate for each one from the mayor recognizing each of you for your accomplishments. And I just want to introduce the first awardee, Sister Aisha Aladewiya, who has been an inspiration to many New Yorkers and many in Muslim communities of New York in particular, and of course, a real inspiration to me. She's like a pillar in the community, one of the most wise people we have, and has been a true pioneer in so many ways, particularly in the area of women's rights and human rights, and looking at the intersection of these areas, and really has taught us a lot about what it means to care deeply for our communities here in New York. She founded the organization Women in Islam in 1992 as a direct response to atrocities perpetrated against Muslim women in the refugee camps in Bosnia. And Women in Islam is an educational advocacy organization. It strengthens the role and voice of women, Muslim women, and empowers them to really speak from a faith perspective about their agency. And she participates in conferences on a variety of topics, including gender justice, conflict resolution, cross-cultural understanding, peace building. She represents Muslim women in non-governmental forums at the United Nations, and she also coordinates Islamic input for preserving Black religious heritage at the Schomburg Center. So I want to congratulate her on receiving this award, and I would love to present you with your certificate.
Wow, look at the room. Assalamu alaikum. Well, how much time do I have? I'm usually handing out awards, so I'm not accustomed to receiving them. So I'll just say that I'm deeply humbled and honored for this recognition. And it was a very easy thing for me to accept this award because I see it as an inspiration in the tradition of the lady whose name it's given. And when I first heard about her, I went and did a fast Google search because I'd never heard of her before. And she reminded me of the woman that I would like to grow up to be. And I'll tell you a very brief story. Years ago, I was in one of my agitation/advocacy roles in our community, advocating for some rights. And at some point, one man looked around and said, who is this woman who refuses to go away? So I see myself in the line and in the tradition of this great lady. And again, I thank you and I'm humbled. Thank you.
In your programs tonight, you'll see a really wonderful drawing by a 12-year-old public school artist named Sasha Matthews, who's done superhero drawings for all of the honorees as a gift. And Sasha was very upset by the last election, as I'm sure many people in this room were. And she decided she was going to use her talent to raise money for the ACLU, and she's raised over $5,000. So Sasha's 12 years old, and she's going to introduce an honoree tonight who was on the kinder transport and came to America when she was 12 years old. So I'm going to bring Sasha to the stage now to introduce Ingrid. Sasha's going to introduce Ingrid Frank. Thank you.
I recently had the privilege of visiting Ingrid Frank and her husband, George Richardson, at their apartment, a few blocks from where I live on the Upper West Side. Ingrid told me that when she was 12, which is how old I am now, she moved to New York City, having escaped Nazi Germany on the kinder transport. She told me that by the time she was 14, she had already joined her first picket line to protest in support of the Scottsboro Boys. 20 protest-filled years later, she camped out in Washington, D.C. in support of the Poor People's Campaign, which was organized by Martin Luther King before his assassination. She told me that she was arrested and spent 10 days in jail. But, most importantly, she told me that it wasn't getting arrested that mattered. What mattered was achieving change. I was chosen to present this award because I'm doing a fundraiser for the ACLU called Everyday Superheroes, to show people the power within themselves to change the world. And I think that Ingrid Frank represents that power. I'm very honored to be introducing Ingrid Frank.
The first year that I was in America, I was 12 years old, and I know I was in 5th grade, and we had a speaker at an assembly that made such an impression on me that it's lasted a lifetime, and I'd like to share it with you. She said, I have forgotten the rest of her speech, but this I will never forget. She said, live your life. Oh, bro, wow. Oh, I was hoping this would not happen. I have Parkinson's, and one of the things that happens with it, 1,000 others, but one of the things that happens is you forget names and you forget things you're talking about. And 5 minutes later or 10 minutes later, when you don't need it anymore, it comes back. But I'm going to try and have it come back now. Anyway, the speaker said, oh, I forgot about this. The speaker said, live your life in such a way so that when you are old, when you're getting ready to die, you don't stand before your fate and say, is that all there is? So live your life with decision to do something useful for the world. I chose human rights, civil rights, and that's because, as the young lady told you, I was born in Germany, and I experienced the Nazis. I was there in Kristallnacht when they came into our house and broke everything and dragged my father off to Dachau. But I had an experience at that time, even though there was no legal Jim Crow in New York. It was being practiced anyway. Nobody lived on the same block as any Negroes or colored people. As we were the right color, and I guess they were the wrong color. That's why we called them colored people. But I managed to get to talk to some girls black girls in a swimming pool. And they asked me how come I had such a funny accent. And I replied that that was a German accent, and they wanted to know a little bit more about Germany. So I told them why I had to be sent out of Germany on a Kindertransport. Oh, brother. Oh, and I told them some of the things that had happened to me and my family in Germany. And one of the girls said, oh, that sounds exactly what happens to us in New York and down south. My grandfather was beaten and he was killed, and then they hung him up and put him on fire. And it was suddenly as though a sheet had dropped from my eyes. I had noticed that there were no black people, no black sales ladies, no black bus drivers, no black anything. But it was as though a sheet had suddenly had dropped from my eyes, and I recognized that America treated its black people the way Germany, at that time there were no extermination camps yet, but the way Germany was treating its Jews, making them feel inadequate, less than, and I know how horrible that could be. So I decided that I was going to never let that happen again. And I would do everything in my power to see that people of all colors could live together, that people of all nationalities and languages and races had enough food, and to do my best to make the world a better place. Let me just round it up quickly. I was afraid this was going to happen. Blame it on Parkinson's. That's everything is the fault of Parkinson's. I marched on my first picket line when I was 14 to free the Scottsboro boys. Fell in love with Paul Robeson when I was 14, not only because he was a great actor and a great singer, but because he was so courageous. He gave up a career that he had struggled 40 years for when they wouldn't let him out of the country. They wouldn't let him into the country. They claimed he was a communist. And he never named names, and he never gave in. And I admired that, and he became my role model. And I became the chairman of our Ban the Bomb Committee, our Fair Housing Committee, various other committees in the suburban town, Belleville, New Jersey, that I lived in. And after a couple of years, I met George Richardson, who was a civil rights leader. Here he is. And a man with more courage and more empathy and with more optimism and creative ability. And we worked together on running a black mayor for Newark, which would have been the first example of that a black man can run for mayor. We didn't expect to win. And he organized a picket line in front of a construction site for a high school in Newark, where he found out that there were no black workers on the entire force. It was lily white. And I'm getting much too long, I want to say we have a book that we just finished called Changing America. And it's the story of our being together 50 years ago when it was not right for a black man and a white woman to work together or to be together. And we worked together for 52 years. And we're still working together. And I think I've talked long enough. This is my son.
Don't say my son the doctor.
And my daughter over there.
We could all listen to all the honorees all night. Once again, we're honored to have the Manhattan Borough President, Gail Brewer. Some of us hope she runs for President of the United States.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here as Manhattan Borough President. I'm leaving it just at that, and I'm honored to be here tonight. I come every year, and every year you feel inspired. We're getting older, we're getting wiser, we're getting more knowledgeable, and we don't forget. And the stories that we hear tonight, I will never forget, and you don't either, because they're so special, they're so important. And I think it helps us remember what we need to do tomorrow and the next day to keep going. It is ironic that today, May 1st, at Foley Square and Union Square, there are great protests. There are protests against you-know-what, number 45. But also some silver lining, which is all of us have been working in the trenches for a very long time, and now all the other people who never did shit are out there helping too. It's very special for me to talk about the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire with the great Edgar Romney and others, because every year we celebrate the women and the people who lost their lives, started the labor movement, but there's also, again, a silver lining. I'm all into what is positive, and thanks to the unions and to the coalition and Lulu and everybody who's part of it, I believe that the memorial will exist. You can't imagine the maturations that go into government. And the reason I say that is there'll be a memorial, wonderful sculpture and so on, but the state of New York gave it to the wrong entity. So now we have to get it out of that entity and into the right entity. Little things like that are always challenging, but they work in the end. I have to laugh, but that's what we're dealing with. All we have to do is get the money to the right group so that they can be built. But that's no different than all the other challenges, and probably not half as bad as so many others that we've all, that Clara Lemlich, the garment industry activist, which is why we're all here today, immigrant from the Ukraine, joined the International Ladies Garment Workers Union after coming to New York in 1905. Now, as Edgar Romney will tell you, here we are 2017, and we're still fighting for the Garment Center. Nothing changes. The Garment Center has changed. We want to make sure it continues in Manhattan. The wonderful unions who are part of the Garment Center are working with us. We want to make sure that the jobs continue, the well-paid jobs, thanks to the union, that there are still factories and that people can work, and that the real estate industry doesn't jack up the rent so high that the manufacturing can't be there. That's kind of our current 2017 challenge. But, between women's suffrage, unemployment issues, tenants' rights, these are all issues that we continue. The only difference between then and now is Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat. Changes the whole world, but again, gives us a way to communicate. So just like everybody else here, we have to keep organizing. It's so inspirational to hear the absolutely amazing honorees. You always have the best honorees imaginable and the stories that go with them. Again, making sure that we don't forget. So I'm here to say thank you for everyone's courage, for your optimism, for your commitment to progressive policies. I hate that word progressive, but to policies that we care about. Because some people who use it are not really progressive. But I want to level the playing field. I want social justice for all, which is what you want. And most importantly, congratulations to the 2017 Clara Lemlich awardees who deserve every bit of this honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. We are honored that you're here. Speaking of silver linings, Edgar Romney has been here almost every year, and he's a longtime union organizer, activist, and silver lining in a lot of situations. And Edgar, it's time to introduce Lydia.
Well, good evening. And thank you very much, Rachel, for that introduction. I'm particularly honored to be here once again. I've been very fortunate because this is the third or fourth time, perhaps, I've had the honor to introduce somebody that's been associated with the labor movement, and particularly my union. And that is certainly, I think speaks volumes to the work that the women of our union have done, certainly over the many, many years. I want to also take the opportunity to thank the Borough President, Gail Brewer, for her help and her assistance in fighting, along with us, along with manufacturers, along with designers, certainly the union, in trying to save and fight to save the garment industry. In many, many years ago, in 1987, because of the conditions in the garment industry at that time, the union and others were able to speak to then Borough Mayor Ed Koch, and to convince him that it was important that this industry, the garment center, which was made up primarily of immigrant workers, that have a place in the city of New York. And what was happening at that time is that the rents were going through the roof. And Ed Koch, in his infinite wisdom at the time, figured out how to pass a zoning law which actually zoned about 7 million square feet of the garment center to make sure that garment manufacturing would stay there. Well, the dynamics have changed. A lot of things have changed. Many of the people that own those buildings now realize the value of those buildings. Zoning has not been enforced, unfortunately, and what many of those owners are trying to do is to get the garment center out of the city of New York and move much of it to Brooklyn. And it's people like Gail Brewer. So Gail, I'd like to thank you for your help in fighting with us. The Borough President also mentioned the demonstrations that are going on today. Today's May Day. Happy May Day, everybody. She mentioned Foley Square and Union Square, but you should know the demonstrations like the one that we're having currently going on. The one at Foley Square is still going on. There's still speakers there, but are happening around this country. And not only all around this country, but indeed around the world. About 10 days ago, I happened to be in Bangladesh, visiting a number of factories there. Many of you remember it was in Bangladesh where that horrific building collapsed, known as Rana Plaza. And one of the things that we were able to do shortly after that fire was to get all of the stakeholders together, the government of Bangladesh, the brands, mostly from the United States and Europe, the workers, the unions, to come together and create what was known as the Accord. What the Accord basically did was to set out some parameters, some protocols in terms of how the workers would function, how government would deal with workers, what brands would do. And also we were able to get the brands to put up a significant amount of money so that those victims who lost their lives, their families would be taken care of. Well, now that is about to expire next year. And I visited Bangladesh, and one of the interesting things, and the garment workers in the house would be interested to know this, I visited a factory under one roof that employed 4,000 workers. Now, I've represented garment workers here in the city of New York for 50 years, and the largest factory I've ever seen here was about 500. All right, so could you imagine what that is like? And Bangladesh is just one of the few places around the world in Southeast Asia where our work is gone. But it is there, and I think we have an obligation to make sure that those workers are protected, just like we fought here, just like Clara Lemlich stood up and to fight for the rights of the garment workers. So there's still plenty of work for us to do, but my task here tonight is to present an award to another incredible woman who I've known for the better part of my working life. And I think she exemplifies what and who Clara Lemlich was all about. Many of you will remember that it was the International Ladies Garment Workers Union, now known as Workers United, but in this environment. And I feel as though I was born and raised in the ILGWU. And I've learned about Clara Lemlich very, very early on. And our union, and along with a lot of other people, still commemorate that horrific event where 146 women lost their lives on the 25th of March. And every year we're out there. It is probably the coldest day, but we are there regardless. And I just want to thank those that are here that work with us in certainly putting that event together. But it's in the spirit of Clara Lemlich that I'm here to talk about Lydia Correa, who was one of those women who also exemplifies the work that Clara Lemlich did and what she stood for, to get up and speak out. Because as we all know, and we've all learned over the years, nothing happens by itself. Somebody's got to stand up and take a position. Somebody's got to say, yes, we must do this. Si se puedes has become one of the greatest phrases in recent years, because people know that, yes, we can. Lydia Correa is one of those people who has stood up and has fought for workers' rights for many, many years. Her career spans, and she may not want me to tell you this, but I'm going to do it anyway, 60 years. Going back to 1956 and 1957, I don't think she or I remember exactly what year that was, when she first started in the Garment Center as a sewing machine operator. And at that time, she realized and understood, that not only was the job important, not only was it important for people to earn a decent living with benefits, but she also understood that people needed a voice. And she was one of the people who stood up and spoke out. She worked for a good designer, a company called Liz Claiborne, that is unfortunately not around. But Lydia also became very, very active in the union. Because she understood the importance of what trade unionism was all about. She represented workers in Liz Claiborne. Liz Claiborne was one of the better companies in the industry, believe it or not, because Liz Claiborne and her husband, a fellow by the name of Arthur Ortenberg, understood what the progressive movement was all about. But yet and still, they were employers and we were workers. And Lydia was one of the people who got up and spoke up in terms of the rights for people, and at contract negotiations, she pushed the union very hard to make sure that workers got what they were entitled and what they deserved. And over the years, Lydia has done an enormous amount of work in behalf of workers. And she is still doing that to this very day. In most recent years, she has undertaken the work and coordinating the work for our retirees in our union, to make sure that the applications are filled out right. And anybody that has a problem with any issues with retiree, they go to Lydia Correa, because they know that she is the person. God only knows what I would do without her, okay? I mean, she has been that great and that strong, and I want to thank you for that. Lydia has also been very active in her community in the Bronx. I mean, nothing goes on that Lydia doesn't know about up there, and she makes sure, literally nothing. She makes sure that workers understand what their rights are. She makes sure that workers understand what's important for them and people in the community as well. The right to vote. It is a right. And many of us, unfortunately, take that right for granted. We all saw what happened to us as a result of that. With New York City, we did okay. But Lydia's one of these people that get up and make sure, never get too tired, okay, to go out and do what is in your best interest, because there are people, as we have learned, okay, over the last couple of months, last 100 days, okay, what that certainly could mean to us. So Lydia, in addition to presenting this award to you, and I don't have an opportunity to say this to you very often, but I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for the work that you do, and thank you for those thousands and thousands of people that you have helped over the many years. So congratulations, and it is an honor to present this award to you.
Good evening, and welcome to this beautiful day. I call this a beautiful, beautiful day. I know it's evening already. Thank you, Edgar, for this beautiful introduction. You remind me of my old days in the past, days when I was young. Today, this award is not only for myself, it's also for all our retirees that share all these days when I need them to join us in the street of the Garment Center, to share a cane that we always work together to put our days at front, our ladies at front, okay? To Rachel Bernstein and Esther Cohen, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, okay? From the labor arts, okay. That make me possible to be here today. Thank you to all of you for everything you do and we do together. Our work is not finished. It's not over yet. It will continue. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, very good.
Thank you, Edgar and Lydia. That was beautiful. Each story is from the heart. Our next presenter is in the performing arts and of the younger generation. Kaylee Kamara is a rapper. He's part of the duo. I lost your name of your duo. Exile Dynamic, a rap duo, Exile Dynamic. And he is coordinates volunteers at St. John the Divine. Kaylee.
Hello, everyone. Can you guys hear me? Yes. Okay, cool. So, yes, my name is Kaylee. People call me King Kaylee, and I represent a rap group called Exile Dynamic. And more or less, the story goes is, Rachel, who's curating the show, she's mutual friends with my mom, and she asked my mom if I could be one of the presenters for today, and my mom asked me, so I said yes. But when I came down to the meeting, basically everyone here, and especially the honorees, man, I just had one of the most transformative moments of my life, just watching everybody, all my elders, and just learning the jewels and the knowledge that you guys are giving me, and the inspiration, the motivation for people like myself to keep going in life. That's something special. And my father, side of the family, he's from Sierra Leone, West Africa. So anything about people from Africa, they really, really believe in respecting your elders, and they're really, really communal. So it's like one of these moments where I feel like I'm making my family, my heritage proud in a sense, because I'm actually learning from people who are older than me, and they're guiding me, and I feel like I want to give a shout out to my father for that, because my mother and my father's both. So that's that. So that's enough about me, and I'm supposed to. So they kind of wanted me to rap a little bit. So I'm gonna rap, and this is, I'm gonna shout this out to all the honorees, and I'm here to definitely honor Viney Burrows. And but I also got a chance to meet Ingrid, which is great, and everybody here. So, all right, so we're gonna try this out. From what I know, yeah. From what I know, yeah. From what I know, yeah. From what I know, present award to Viney Burrows for whole life living so thorough, yeah, so cool. She always represents school, yeah. Born in Harlem Hospital. Born to be raised to rise above any obstacle, and that's what she's done. She really is a champion. On Broadway or off Broadway, no matter what, she has to go the hard way, and the real hard way was when she just did her own play. You know, Black in the Great White Way. Did I say the name correct? I say that I wanted to just say and give a shout out to everybody here, that you guys are just more than my peers. I'm actually learning you to give to my peers, so I could go ahead and shed a tear. One day when I turn your age, I can say that I've done a lot of great things back in my day. Yeah, back in my day, yeah. Give an award, yeah. I don't even need a sword, cause the pen is mightier than the sword, yeah. Yo, it's mightier than the sword, yeah. And you know that my rhymes galore. Just shout out to everybody here, cause you already know that this is where we show you in Harlem, in Morningside Heights, in Manhattan. It's not Gotham, it's the city, it's the world. It's the way I just dive to the ocean and come back with pearls. That's knowledge, that's me, yeah, graduating from college. So one day I could go be a scholar, a gentleman and a scholar for dollars. But it's more than the money ain't funny. You already see that I'm not being bummy, because I'm doing what's everything's right. Learning from people from the civil rights, yeah, civil rights. And I just gotta say thank you. Once again, shout out to Viney Burroughs. And we doing it great for everybody here, yo. I hope you guys like my freestyle though. Peace out, yo, everybody, yo. Yeah, everybody, yo. Thank you guys. Thank you, Viney. Thank you, Ingrid. Thank you, George. Thank you, Rachel. All right, I'm done. Peace.
Thank you for that wonderful, wonderful introduction.
Oh, yes, you're welcome.
I am humbled and I am honored, and most of all, I am inspired. I am inspired by the stories that we have heard and the stories that we have not heard, the stories of our own mothers and fathers and our foreparents, and the struggles that they went through so that we could emerge. And when you think of Clara Lemlich, I think of her as a firebrand, and what she lit, that 23-year-old girl, speaking in Yiddish, giving this fiery speech before 20,000 garment workers. She set out a branch, she set out a flame, and that flame is still burning. And we are carrying that. I really have no more to say. Maybe because I'm an actress and I like to have a script in my hand. But I am inspired. I was so inspired by the choir singing. And when you talked about the forests, and when you talked about our waters, and when she talked about the beauty and the majesty of this land, which is our land, which belonged to the Native Americans and was expropriated by but it is our land, and we must take care of it. And climate change is real. We love the land, we love each other, we struggle and we fight for each other and with each other. Solidarity forever. Arlene Allende, is Arlene still here? Good. Arlene Allende was described to me many, many years ago as the true mayor of the Bronx. She is the Community Affairs Director at St. Barnabas Hospital, and she's here to introduce our fantastic next honoree, Mary Douglas.
Good evening, anybody. Good evening, Miss Mary. So I am from the Bronx. I am from where Lydia's from. I am from where Mary is from. I was born and raised in the Bronx. St. Barnabas Hospital is in the Bronx. And I am pleased that my hospital chose me to be the one to talk to you about Mary. Mary belongs to what we call the volunteer department. She's been there longer than I've been in St. Barnabas. Mary has been a volunteer with us for more than 30 years. 32. So here's this retired school teacher, decides she has a year off because she was never sick. So in the year that she's off, as she's being retired, she goes to school. Why? Because she believes that learning is living and living is learning. She goes to school, becomes our medical assistant. And she works in the hospital units for years, actually for 20 years. And then she decides, oh well, St. Barnabas now has a hospice unit, so she goes back to school to do hospice. And she's still with us in the hospital doing hospice. And right now, I am very pleased to tell you that last year, she became Dr. Douglas. She was awarded an honorary degree in public service because her life is service. Service to others, and I am so honored that I am the one introducing you to Mary Douglas. Dr. Mary Douglas.
Ladies and gentlemen, you know, I feel like that I am in St. Barnabas on the floor where we have the surgical unit and the trauma. And then I go down to hospice. But when I go into the trauma and the surgical unit, I don't know the name of the persons that they assign me to. So I walk in the room and I'm going to greet you like I greet them when I go in there. They have not seen me. I would say, good morning, my love. How are you? And the faces just open up. I said, my goodness. They said, where did you come from? So the next day, they don't see me until next Wednesday. They say, what happened to you? Did you go on vacation? I missed you. Where have you been? I said, no. I said, I'm here on Wednesday with you. So I'm so pleased to be there with them. And sometimes I have students there who are patients. And when I go and see them, I tell all the nurses, that's one of my students. And I said, and I go to the patient and say, you know what? I told him that you were my students. You got to be on your best behavior. So they say, oh, I am going to be on my best behavior. Then the next time I see a patient there, one of my parents, I walk in the room and say, oh, I remember you. I said, you do? Where did you remember me from? They said, 129. I said, oh my God, she doesn't remember me. But I want to tell you that I am very happy to work with the patients that are not in hospice, and I'm happy to work with the patients who are in hospice, because in hospice, we do not want you to know, I want you to think that you have been forgotten. So when I go in there, I am just very happy to be with those persons, because I know those patients are here today, tonight they may be gone. Sometimes they're not there when I go back the next Wednesday, but they're always looking for me. And I leave them feeling good that somebody cared for them. And I want to tell you that all that I have done for others, I should have. And I'm very pleased with myself for allowing myself to be comfortable with those persons who don't have the life that I have. And I know that their life is limited. And when I go there, I'm happy, but I'm sad when I leave hospice. I'm sad because today I see you and you are happy. Tomorrow you're not there for me to say hello to you. And thank you so much, and I'm so happy to see all of you.
Dr. Mary Albritton Douglas, to me, personally known as Soror Mary A. Douglas.
Sarah Douglas, congratulations on this most prestigious Clara Lemlich Award, an award that you are more than deserving of. And I say to you, one more diamond in your already star-studded crown. And so on behalf of the Kappa Sigma chapter of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated, it gives me great pleasure to say to you, for all you do, these buds are for you.
Congratulations. I see you over there right here.
That was beautiful. Thank you, thank you. Our last presenter is Amanda Darvin, who has run educational programs for City Lore, which if you don't know about them, you should check it out. She's been working with students and cultural wonders of New York City for decades. Amanda.
Well, speaking of decades, when my husband and I first moved to New York City, and I grew up on a farm in South Carolina, so this was a big deal for me. Sorry, the wrong one. Sorry. So my husband and I moved to New York City many decades ago, and to become folklorists for the Queen's Council on the Arts. And one of the first artists we met was the wonderful artist who's going to get the next award, Lubawa Linitz. We were so impressed with her artistry, but we were also so impressed with her passion for sharing her artistry and teaching others. One of the first events that we presented her was the Queen's Festival, if any of you remember that, in Flushing Meadow Park, with 1 million people on a hot summer day in a tent with no air conditioning. And Luba was just gracious and wonderful to everyone who came by, no matter their age or their background, for the entire day. And we were just reminiscing about that, and she reminded me that my husband and I had to bring our little baby along, and we set him up under her table so that he could just play while she was presenting, and he's now 34 years old. So it was a long time ago. But what impressed us about Luba was she really understood the value of maintaining traditional arts for everyone, but in particular for immigrants and refugees who've really been taken or lost their original home of origin, and the value of maintaining those traditions here as a way of maintaining your identity and your connection to your culture. And she's been really a teacher throughout her career. She's now the curator of the Folk Arts Division of the Ukrainian Museum, where she's worked since it was founded, and continues to work there and continues to teach. She honors her own teachers. She was in a displaced persons camp after World War II. And she was taught by one of the teachers there how to do these beautiful Ukrainian embroideries. And she also learned from her mother there the value of these for maintaining a tradition, because she grew out of her embroidered Ukrainian shirt while she was there. Her mother was so distressed because it's so important to keep your embroidered shirt, that she gathered pieces from all the people in the camp and created a shirt for her. So Lubawa has continued to, I think, teach people of all backgrounds about the value of their own traditions as well as her own, and it's a great honor for me to see her again and to introduce you to her. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you so much. When I was first approached about this award, I felt I didn't quite cut the bill, but they convinced me I did. And so I'm really very proud and humbled. And I think the most beautiful and most precious connection that I can say is that Clara Lemlich came from Ukraine, and I came from Ukraine, and we should. Preservation of a heritage, of anyone's, your own or other, is utmost importance, especially when if you're 6-7-year-old child and you see your heritage being destroyed. Something stirs you. It leaves a mark for your whole life. And then I was lucky enough when we lived 4 years in displaced persons camps. I had a wonderful teacher, and she inspired me even more. She made us learn not only about our heritage, but embroidery. And even the boys in our class had to learn that too. She would be sure that they would become acquainted. When I looked and read through all of the formidable accomplishments of so many today's special people and many years before and so on. And sometimes you wonder, what is it? Is there a formula for activists to act, which they act upon? Or is it something that just comes out naturally? And a long time ago, and one of the American Library Association conferences, I heard this words of wisdom, and by paraphrasing, and I think this is the formula that activists sort of knowingly or not knowingly live by and work by. And it goes like this. Be mindful of your thoughts, because your thoughts will become your deeds. Be mindful of your deeds, because your deeds will become your habits. Be mindful of your habits, because your habits will become your character. Be mindful of your character, because this will be your life. And be mindful of your life, and you will leave a legacy. Thank you.
So none of us would be here tonight without the vision of the Puffin Foundation creating a gallery to honor the social justice struggles in the city of New York, and honoring all of us by letting us come here tonight and celebrate. And Neil Rosenstein is going to talk a little bit about the Puffin Foundation.
And I promised it will be a little bit. Listen, on behalf, a lot of you know them, I'm sorry they're not here, of Perry and Gladys Rosenstein and the Puffin Foundation, we offer our congratulations and our thanks to all of tonight's honorees, all of tonight's past honorees, all of tonight's future honorees. You listening, Sasha? 68 years. That's all it's going to take. And what an extraordinary I think, display of the city's best tonight. Races, creeds, geographic diversity, immigrants, refugees to this country. I think we send an extraordinarily important and wonderful message about what this city is all about. But I also did want to take the brief opportunity to offer my thanks. I know they've been thanked to the museum, to Whitney Donhauser, who you saw earlier, the incredible job that she and her staff are doing and have done to make the Museum of the City of New York a really vibrant place. They have some fantastic public shows and special events and talks through Activist New York and others that we urge you to visit and take advantage of. I'm sure you can sign up for their emails on their website. You know, upstairs, I got to see my first shirtwaist. You know, I never knew what they looked like. You know, it's a piece of clothing, and it's right up there. And it was really exciting. the Puffin Gallery's curator was up there. They've had to rotate that shirtwaist 27 times because they're basically decomposed in the light and they're kind of an endangered, quantity. It's original shirtwaist sewing machine, some fantastic artwork up there of the triangle of the fire itself and some things on Lemlich. And this is a fantastic place. And I hope not only that you've gotten to take a look at it, but you make sure that you come back, that you bring your kids, that you tell your kids' teachers, or that the museum has extraordinary programs here which talk about the gallery and talk about Activist New York, which is our shared history, it's our current, and it's also our shared future. So thank you very much, and what an honor to be here in the presence of all these folks.
Rose Emperata is going to say a few words about the Triangle Fire Memorial.
Hi, everyone. If you are in any way involved with the Remember the Triangle Fire Coalition or have participated volunteering in any of the coalition's events to remember the Triangle Fire or have shown up at the commemoration this year or any past year, can you raise your hand? Yes! So I really don't need to say very much. You heard Gail Brewer talk about the Triangle Fire. You heard Edgar Romney talk about the garment workers of today. The Remember the Triangle Fire Coalition, she referred to us as the coalition, operates as a coalition, as a group. Suzanne, Joel, Andy, May, Sherry, who else? Everybody that's here that's involved, please come talk to us. We are building a memorial, and it is so important because for the Sashas of the future, for any students that come along when we're not there to be the teachers, as Lupo talked about, find teachers. We need to inspire, we need to remember. We don't want to repeat history. We know how that goes. Find us, Remember the Triangle Fire Coalition. We're building a memorial. And as we heard from Lydia Correa said earlier, she said, this is not over. We're still in it. So glad you're here, Rita. I wish I could have met your mom. I would have loved to thank her for being so brave at 23, but we can be brave at any age, and we need to be super brave right now. So get involved with us, come find any of us, and thank you so much, Rachel and Esther. You're amazing. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Rose. One of the highlights, of course, is going to be the labor chorus. But before we go there, I just want to ask you all, when you go home, to take your program with you and check out the websites of some of the young people who have been with us tonight. Sasha has a website. Annie DeRusso has a website. Kaylee has a website. They're the future generations that we want to connect with. So start now. There will be video about our honorees on the Labor Arts website in a couple of weeks, and we hope you can make a donation. This is an amazing event. It's free, but it doesn't happen without support. So if you can see your way towards supporting events like this in the future, please go to the Labor Arts website. The Labor Chorus has been a fundamental part of New York City picket lines and activist events for decades, and we are honored that they are here. And I think you want to say something else? Esther is going to say one last word as they get ready to sing. But thank you all.
This week begins the Workers Unite Film Festival, started by Andrew Tilson. And yes, free tickets for everybody here. So see Andrew on the way. And I want to say thank you to the Labor Chorus, particularly you guys are wonderful. I think we should all say thank you.
So you all have song sheets. So we're expecting you to sing along. Look for your song sheets.
There can be no power greater anywhere beneath the sun. Yes, what force on earth is weaker than the feeble strength of one? For it's the union, yes, the union makes us strong. Everybody sing solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For it's the union, yes, the union makes us strong. They have taken that they never torture, but without our brain and muscle, not a single wheel could turn. We can break their hearted power, gain our freedom where we learn. Everybody sing solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Come on, stand up. For it's the union, yes, the union makes us strong. In our hands place the power greater than the heart of gold, greater than the might of armies, magnified 1,000-fold. We can bring to birth a new world from the ashes of the old. With the union, yes, the union makes us strong. Everybody singing.